Let's see when the recorder gets going here. All right, the recording has started. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to anyone who is watching this online as well. Today, we're going to open with a short word of prayer and then go through an overview of something that I hope everyone is going to be interested in. All right, so let's begin. Dear God, our Heavenly Father, we know that you welcome all to come to your kingdom. We ask you to be with us today and show us how we might be welcoming to all those who come to us, and show us how we might invite others as they come to our church, that they might know you and have a relationship with you through us as well. I ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. So towards the start of the year, we had good attendance when we did this book, Scrappy Church, right? Seemed like everybody wanted to hear about that one. Well, the follow-on to that is becoming a welcoming church. I can only get one copy of this.
Really?
You can get it online. And I know, Tom, you like to get the books online.
Yeah.
So you can go to Amazon and get a Kindle book. But we could only get one of these through Amazon.
Why?
The inventory was only one.
Either there's real high demand or real low demand.
I think it's real high demand because I'm seeing it pop up in other sites as well.
Oh, good.
B&H Publishing does this. I think there's a couple of other publishers or catalog that will do it. But
Yeah.
when we went to order this was the only one. So I think it's really high demand, particularly this time of year, because we're coming to that point where school is about to be back in session. And churches are now looking at how can we invite those to come back to church. It's a Back to Church Sunday coming up, actually, in another week. A lot of churches are doing a Back to Church Sunday and a big splash for that. But we are doing something a little bit different. So Paul, as you are a first-time visitor here, this video may be of interest to you. It's sort of satirical. Hello, Craig.
Good morning.
We're going to be talking about becoming a welcoming church, and I'm going to show a video. Let's see if I can put it in the chat in case you can't see it as well. So in the chat is the link to this YouTube video that we're going to be showing here in a moment. We talk about what it's like for first-time guests to come to our church. Like I said, this is a bit of satire, but it's almost too close to home. All right?
Hi there. Welcome to your church. Today, I'd like to talk with you about becoming a more welcoming church. Back here, we've got Jack.
For some reason, it's not going through the owl. What happened with the owl? Technical difficulties, please stand by. And let's see if I can find it here. I've got Ethernet. There we go. And my output should be Meeting Owl. There we go. We'll give that another try here.
Hi there. Welcome to your church. Today, I'd like to talk with you about becoming a more welcoming church. Back here, we've got Jack and Sally and little Jack, and they're first-time guests today. Hi. You guys ready? We got a bit of a hike. Let's do it. Please. Most church members don't see their churches clearly. They think of their churches as friendly, open, welcoming. But when guests were surveyed, they typically saw church members as unfriendly and they certainly didn't feel welcomed.
Hello?
The perception chasm existed because church members were indeed friendly to one another. Guests felt like they were crashing a private party. Should we get Jack checked in? For instance, while you feel your church is homey and everyone knows each other, without clear security safeguards, guests may find those same areas creepy, or worse yet, unsafe.
Nope.
See you in worship. The problem is, church isn't a country club. It's a place for broken people to come together and become a family. Sermon's starting. Gotta be quick. In his new book, Tom Rainer has a game plan for making churches more hospitable. In all his years of consulting churches and analyzing research, he's developed a resource to help church members understand their role in becoming a welcoming church.
Hey, I can't hear the
Rainer
sermon.
guides readers toward a practical framework for making a difference in the lives of those that visit their churches. Churches can use becoming a welcoming church to understand and audit where they are on the spectrum between welcoming and wanting. Also, don't be boring. Check the book out, it's in there.
Any thoughts, comments?
Did they film that? Did they film that in the church basement? The scary part.
Could have filmed it here, but yeah. Not that I'm trying to slam anything on us, but
No.
we don't recognize that how it appears to those who are outside coming in. And last week we had a lot of visitors, about 32 if I recall correctly. So that was one that I heard some comments afterwards in the week that followed about
Such
whether we were
as?
welcoming or not.
Such as?
Well, they took the bulletin that's laid out like a book, right? And they're following along in the liturgy, and then when it gets to the hymn, it's just got the title of the hymn. Now what do you do?
That's right.
Somebody had to whisper to him, "You use the book."
They don't understand that you have to open the hymnal.
Right.
Like, all you gotta do is, in parentheses, please refer to the hymnal in the pew.
We could put that there, or we could just hand all of the guests the large copy that has the hymns in it. Even
Oh, right.
simpler.
No, that's,
So if you see a visitor, someone who you know is not a member, hand them the large copy. Real simple.
we probably are not doing that to save paper. Like, that's really critical.
We're also probably not doing it because we spent money on the hymnals and people want to use them. I think there's a variety of reasons, but
We spent money on the hymnals, but we don't want the people who attend as guests to know that.
to know that we spent the money on the hymnals, but we want to get our money's worth.
Certainly. But do you want to exclude people from actually worshiping with you?
No, I mean I'm all for it.
Yeah. So we've got selected copies that Kathy always uses, right? With the hymns in it, so you don't have to fumble around. And for parents with children, trying to fumble with the hymnal can be difficult as well. Be sensitive to what those who are outside of our holy huddle are actually experiencing. That's what we're saying, right?
I guess at the very least, we should make a lot more large sizes. I mean, if nothing else at this point.
Kathy Gherkin is very sensitive to the money that we spend. And so we don't print as many because we're going over our allotted amount on the copier.
And then we run out and people don't have them. So
So change the contract on the allotment.
Right.
Well, do you know in advance, because of the event, when you're likely to have 30 guests versus 2 or 3?
We don't. So we cut down from printing all of them full size, because that was the complaint, because we're printing so many that are full size. So we went to the book size because people wanted to use the the book size and use the hymnal, all right? And then we had the limited amount, okay, we'll print 5 for those people who need the large print.
And the people who gave you feedback, this seemed like a serious problem, because I would think once you'd been to any church anywhere, do it the same way. They don't?
No,
No.
Every church is different, and most churches these days have the screens up in front. So you don't even-
We've had the screen issue, and then that became a issue because they don't want to put up the screen, so. I mean,
The
I
person-
think that's.
Feedback was, she grew up in the Salvation Army.
I'm sorry.
She grew up in Salvation Army.
Oh.
That's the church that she attends, is Salvation Army.
Yeah, and they,
She could follow the stuff that was bold and
right,
she could follow what it was that we were responding to, but when we got to the hymn, she was totally lost.
well, okay,
So we've got people who are coming to the church who may not have been to church at all.
yes, yeah. Well, and the first time you do something, you learn how it's done.
It's gonna be uncomfortable,
Well,
yeah.
and one thing you could do is when you announce the hymn, say hymn number blah, blah, blah in your pew hymnal.
Right. I could do that.
Yes.
And I do announce the hymn number,
Right.
so I could say, in your books.
In your hymnal, yeah, well, that would save all the extra printing and everything. I mean, at least,
But still, you got people who are fumbling with a child and the hymnal and liturgy.
okay,
But we print maybe 5 of the full size with the hymns in it. Is that enough for days when we're doing a special celebration? August 20th will be the opening of the school. We'll be doing blessing of backpacks. We expect more visitors from Open Arms to show up for that. Now, those who are Catholics see everything in the missal, right?
right.
Do they use the hymnal in the Catholic Church?
Well, there's the message.
They use the missal. So even if you've been Catholic, you come here and it's not in the missal that they think they've got in their hand, right?
okay, well, it's a good suggestion, an opportunity.
Tom Rayner, the author of the book, 7 out of 10 guests will go to a church website as a determinative factor in where they will choose to visit. Now, members of the church don't visit the website, right? Members of the church don't ever go to the website, and they wonder why we're not announcing things at service. Because it's on the website. I've heard a complaint also about, you send too many emails. I get all these emails from you. Well, how else am I supposed to communicate with you? Well, the announcements that are spoken after church, those are the important ones. Those are the only ones I need to know. They do a wonderful job of doing matters of importance after service. Yeah, but there's things we can't communicate in that. Because we don't want you here for a half an hour.
Not everybody reads emails. I was talking to someone last Sunday morning and
Yep.
say, you didn't show up for the prospective pastor. Oh, I never look at emails.
We sent out an email. Yeah. So I asked the person who complained about my sending too many emails, well, how would you like me to communicate
Yes.
with you? Well, just the matters of importance after service is fine.
But then people aren't.
We've got the announcements in the bulletin. Probably never read the bulletin.
Some people just like to complain. I'm sorry. I mean,
You know,
And then you've got those people that come maybe once a month.
They've missed all of the
They've
announcements
missed all the announcements.
up to that time.
And what if things come up like the pastor-elect meeting that come up in the middle of the week?
Well, you are required for a special voters meeting to announce it 2 weeks before. But if they only come once a month, they're gonna miss that, right?
Right.
I wouldn't worry about too many emails because we get 50 to 60 promotional emails a day we have to delete.
And you figure out how to just scan it and delete it, right?
So I would go on emailing as much as, yeah.
I have said, when I get that complaint, I would rather hear the complaint that I'm over communicating
Yes,
Right.
than not
Yes.
communicating enough.
yes.
It's just a matter of, if you get an email and you don't want to read it, don't read it. If you're getting too many emails, find a way to manage your emails better. You got to get the word somehow, right?
And not that I would ever criticize, but I would vote for not, having too many, because last week I couldn't find one to join the Bible study anymore. So
Because last week we didn't have one.
is that what it was?
We had-
I
we had-
was not informed, so I tried to join, and I sat here for like 5 minutes on the old link.
And I could not get connected to the internet last week,
Oh,
which is why I did not get an email. So it wasn't a matter of not finding it, it just didn't exist last week.
there.
It wasn't there.
And,
So you were
know,
looking.
but I always allot for that possibility that I don't know what I'm doing. So
I should have sent out an email saying, I don't know if I'll send out an email about this one. Huh?
exactly.
So as you're looking out in the crowd, do you see anyone in particular?
And the one in color,
The one in color. Why do you see the one in color only?
because he stands out.
Ah. And someone comes to our congregation, do they stand out?
Yes.
And do we pounce on them after they come? We try not to,
Right.
but what happens is we have a holy huddle. That's what it's called. A welcoming church understands the importance of breaking up the holy huddle. Now, last week with so many guests that we had here, the holy huddle couldn't do it.
Right.
It actually broke up the holy huddle because of so many guests that we had here.
Yeah.
We had regular attenders of about 50 and guests of about 30. So there was no way for the holy huddle to come together. But I noticed in the pews, none of the members were sitting with guests. And that's an important point. The holy huddle is not bad, as we hear in Acts 2:42 in the New American Standard. They were continually devoting themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. The holy huddle is not bad. The holy huddle is a good thing to continually gather together, right? But the problem is churches perceive they are friendly because the members are friendly to one another. And what do the guests feel like?
Outsiders,
All right.
It's like going,
intruders.
I was gonna say, it's like going to a conference. When I first started in business, going to conferences, it was hard. You want to go sit by the people you know.
Yeah.
But then when you're in a marketing role, and you're selling business, you want to go to a table where you don't know anybody, so you can really benefit by getting to know more people.
Yeah.
Which it's a conscious decision to do that.
It's a very conscious decision because the people you know are naturally going to gravitate to you as well.
Right.
Now, I understand last week, one of our visitors actually engaged with several of our members and talked with them about, what was going on here in the church. And that was a good thing because he did that. And I suspect he might be a person with experience in network marketing, like you and I have been. I go to Chamber of Commerce networking meetings. And I don't go and talk.
Are you referring to that Bruce gentleman, Pastor? Or?
Yeah, Bruce, right.
Yeah. Did you get his? I mean, I know this is completely off subject, but I put in the thing about a prayer request because his daughter got deployed to Iraq, and
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure that was on the, at this late hour, that it was on the prayer list because he didn't finish it for the offering, and then he gave it to me later, and then I gave it to Chuck. So I just want to make sure that made it.
And I got it on Monday morning, thank you. And we put it in the prayer request for this week as well.
Thank you.
In addition, because he had filled out a card with his contact information, we found him in the archive of our database. And he also put in his home church, so I was able to email his home church that he was here, attended communion, and had submitted a prayer request, so his home church can pray for it as well. And a perfect example of why we have those cards in the pews, not to take membership, but to take prayer requests and to get contact information from those guests. And if I have the contact information from the guests, then I can follow up with the guests, right? But without those cards, people were saying, why don't they sign the book in the back? As Mary Long pointed out, only Lutherans know the book is back
Right,
there.
that's right.
So if they don't sign the book in the back and they don't put in a guest card, I've got no way to reach out to them. By the time I get back there, usually the guests are gone because of the holy huddle. Right? Guests come in, they walk out after service, they don't know what's going on, they head to their car. So as they come in, that's another question. Majority of guests feel like they're intruding on a party to which they were not invited. If you came to this church, I'm not slamming this church, but many of our other churches are doing the same thing. If you came to this church, would you know where to park?
Yeah.
Well,
If
you
you park
guess.
anywhere, it doesn't say handicapped or no parking.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think that's a big issue.
Might not be unless you're way off in the field somewhere, like we saw in the video.
Oh, yeah.
You look for Paul's truck and try to park there.
Just guest parking next to me is what we'll put on Paul's truck. Yeah.
Right.
St. Paul Mount Prospect pastor was after the congregation put a sign right in the closest spot to the door, reserved for first-time guests, right? And when they put up that sign, it was right before he took a call to another church. He said, "You've made me a happy man." Right? Everybody knew this was the spot for first-time guests because it was close to the door.
That's an idea, if you had people greeting others in the parking lot and recognizing,
Yeah?
oh, let me walk you in.
Let me show you which way to go.
Please sit with me.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good idea.
And right after he put up that first-time guest and then took another call, people just parked in that parking spot anyway.
Oh,
Not first-time guests. So the point of it was to hold that spot open for first-time guests. The next time I come to church, I see somebody who's been a member for 30 years parking in that spot. So even those kind of things did not take hold because of the culture of the church, right? So when someone walks in, the worst part of the guest experience takes place right before the worship service begins. But I'm going to tell you the worst part of the worship service that happens in most congregations is, where do I go when I walk in the door? If you look at this from a visitor's perspective, this is a split decision. You walk in either side door, which way do I go? Up or down?
Okay.
you always go up in churches because it points toward heaven.
If you've been toward in the church, yeah. Most churches are at the ground level though right now.
Historically, medieval churches were way up high.
And I appreciate your view of medieval churches. But first-time church attenders are not familiar with medieval churches, right?
That this goes back to like when we were surveying people, whether we think we're welcoming or not. And I mean, I'm sure there's something, but there's a line between being welcoming and then being smiling, or some people react the opposite way. Like if you're, you want to be welcoming, and I certainly do think that, but then there's other people that think that being smothering.
Yeah.
Is there some kind of concept of where you draw that line?
It's a balance. You don't want to be smothering, and with that guest experience, you don't want to have them being pounced upon by others either, right?
Yeah, it's a very difficult process.
And that's something you have to learn over time how to do. That's why you have certain people that are going to do it right, be the ones who are assigned as those who would approach the guests. Does that make sense? The ones who have been trained to be greeters, right? Not just standing behind the welcome center and offering coffee, but those who would actually come up and learn a little bit about them without smothering them and say, I know you're not familiar with this church. Perhaps you could sit with me and we could go through how the service works here, because it works different in every congregation. When we went to St. Paul Mount Prospect, one of the first things that happened to us was we walked in, we didn't know what was going on. We got invited by the bussies to come
No,
sit
the box.
the box, to sit next to them, to sit with them. Come sit next to us. We don't recognize you as people we should know, but we should know who you are. Would you come sit next to us? And then they kind of walked us through how everything was supposed to work, right? And the next week when we came back,
And they invited us back.
because they invited us back, next week when we came back, we got big hugs. Oh, you're back. Happy to see you. But it wasn't smothering, right? We had gone to other Lutheran churches when we were first married and trying to find a church home. And we had a Rowan and Martin routine up in front between the two pastors. And it was nobody in the congregation actually spoke to us that day, right? They had refreshments out back, but nobody said a word to us. So if you've ever experienced going to a church for the first time and done some church shopping, you see how astounding this can be, right? Craig, when you go visit other churches, they all know you, right?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, my dad, I go mostly, a lot of times I visit at my dad's church, and he just, it's following in his wake. So he's known.
Everybody
So
knows him, yeah.
I mean, I really haven't been anywhere just completely, out of the blue in a while.
Yeah. Try visiting another church and see how they do things at another church that you not go to.
Right. I mean, at my dad's church too, they do have that, when you've talked about with the welcoming center and people that are appointed as greeters, and they do greet you, and then, if you're with somebody, they obviously can recognize that.
Went to Kathy's sister's church in Hot Springs Village. And boy, do they welcome you there.
We stopped at the Welcome Center and they gave us little crosses.
And a packet of information, right?
Right.
And crosses to wear to identify that you were a guest. You're supposed to put this cross on so everyone knows you're a guest. It was a bit overboard, but we felt welcomed, yeah. So, for if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? What does that say to you?
You're supposed to love everyone, love others.
Including your enemies, right? And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Not even Gentiles do the same. You therefore must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. So the second point, a welcoming church exists primarily to serve God and serve others. We see the start of the washing of the feet as Jesus showed his disciples how to serve others at that last Passover meal, or instituted the Lord's Supper. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So as we are followers of Christ, we are here to serve others, right? So what does that look like in the church service here?
Like you said, often to sit with people that are first timers. And if it's somebody that you don't know, you can always say, I know I should know your name, but I don't recognize you, or.
Yeah. That way, if they're a member that you haven't seen before, but they've been a regular member, you're not offending them by saying, are you a visitor? And we've got that happening a lot of times in this particular congregation after COVID. I didn't know the people who were not here during COVID, but some of them are coming back for regular attendance now. So I can't go up and say, oh, welcome guest. What, I've been a member here for 30 years.
Yeah.
So the welcoming church is more of an attitude or disposition It represents the mindset of an outward focus rather than an inward focus. It's about serving rather than being served. How can we relate to that in what we do here?
Well, I think another thing we can do is invite after church, make sure we invite those that are guests or those we don't recognize to partake in the coffee hour. I think a lot of times visitors come, and because no one has approached them, they run out the door right after service instead of stopping to get to know us.
Because to them, it appears it's the holy huddle again
Yeah.
after service, right? So if you don't introduce yourself during that meet and greet time, which we call passing of the peace, some people feel comfortable with the meet and greet time out in the narthex. They come in, we do the passing of the peace, and I've had to complain about, it seems like utter chaos and the church service has already started. Well, not really. It hasn't started until after we get into the first hymn. But there are those that say, once he started playing the prelude, the church service has started. Yeah, but you're still standing out in the narthex until after the bells ring. You can say that, but you're not in the sanctuary until afterwards. And we still have people showing up 5-10 minutes late. So we do a passing of the peace to allow that time to come together. And then you can greet those that you don't recognize at that point, right? Do we do that? Well, can't restrain people from doing that, right? But you can't force them to do it either. When we first started doing passing the peace, everybody stayed in their pews and turned to the person next to them, right? But I've seen in the last couple of months that people are actually getting in the center aisle and doing that, right?
It was like that before COVID.
Yeah, but it's taken a while
Oh,
for
yeah.
it to come back.
That's true.
Is what I'm saying. It has finally taken a while for it to come back, and people are actually engaging in the center aisle to the point where now we have to allow an extra 10 minutes in service for the passing of the peace, which I don't mind. Right? People are actually engaging with each other. They're seeing people they don't recognize or people that they've known from the past who are coming back. And that's the purpose of that passing of the peace right there. So you get to know them and get acquainted before the service starts. And if you find somebody that looks like they might be a little bit befuddled, offer to sit with them. You can get up out of your pew and go sit with them, right? Now, Tom can't because he's in the back. But the rest of us can actually go and sit with those that we don't know to kind of help guide them through how we do these things. I've had somebody tell me, why don't we use the same confession every week? Because I don't want people to feel like they're doing it by rote.
Right.
It has no meaning that way. Yeah, but that's the one I know.
If you can read, it's not a problem.
But I'm juggling with a child. Okay. So the inward focused church sees worship as something for themselves. And the outward focused church sees worship as something to attract the lost. In the Great Commission, he says, go, make disciples of all nations. And say, come, sit here with the folks you know. Can't make disciples of all nations if you're all staying together, right?
I was just going to mention something with regard, you got me thinking about the having a screen.
Yep.
And we talked to Pastor Douglas whether or not they were doing that. They do have a screen or two screens in front of the sanctuary. But he was saying how contentious it was at first.
Mm-hmm.
And what we got to do around here more of is it's people seem to express their opinion or they have a perception of what that is. It's like, oh, this is not Willow Creek. We don't want it to turn into Willow Creek.
Mm-hmm.
But go and talk to leaders at other churches that have done that. And what are the strengths and weaknesses of it? But people will right away contemplating that right away elicits an opinion very strong opinion whether it's for or against.
It's one or the other. Yeah.
When,
There's no middle ground on this
Right,
thing.
right,
when St. Paul Mount Prospect first put in the screens, I was very upset.
yeah,
She didn't want a church with screens in it.
I didn't want a church with screens in it, but the more that we went, I came to really appreciate the screens because for one, I could have my head up
right,
and read and reply and sing and see what's going on the altar and pay attention better to the pastor than I could with my head down and my nose in the hymnal.
So instead of reading the hymnal, you're actually looking up at the altar,
Right,
and that's within view.
right.
so before we approach that, and hopefully we will, I think I'm gonna recommend that we do a survey of other congregations and find out what the strengths and weaknesses that have been.
Not necessarily do a survey, but go to other
Well,
congregations
that's true.
and
Either
see
go-
what it's like.
Yeah.
It's not distracting. Trust me, it's not distracting.
No,
It's the opposite of distracting. It focuses your attention up front where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And the pastor, if he's got a screen in the back, doesn't have to be sitting there looking down at the sheet either.
Right,
He can look out to the congregation and glance up at what he's supposed to be saying as well.
yeah,
Because it's not the same thing every week. It's something different every week. Craig, you saw a pastor who was doing a wonderful job up front, right?
I think Craig dropped off.
He's got to come here. No, he's still there. Craig, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
You saw a pastor who was doing a wonderful job standing there without anything in his hands and speaking to the congregation,
Right,
right?
and it's like it's like reading the State of the Union address
Because he's got a screen in the back of the church.
because he got a screen and it's magic that he doesn't need any notes. You're very good at it, even though you're not. That's a talent that you have that you're able to. You know,
I wouldn't call it a talent.
you just don't stick to your script. You're kind of very, it's very smooth, but but he was like, it was magical until you saw all the stuff in the back, but that's fine.
You turned around and saw what he was looking at, huh?
Yes. Because
Yeah.
I'm a nosy lawyer.
Yeah, but people would recognize that as something wonderful. This guy knows the whole service.
Yeah.
But it's actually more of an interaction thing. And if you've experienced it, you realize how beneficial it can be. Because I look up from my iPad on occasion and look around, but that would be nice to be able to do more of actually interacting with the congregation, with the assembly, right?
It did, the reaction, like Tom was saying, it did surprise me because, I do think we have a beautiful sanctuary, but we kind of get, I think, hung up on the beauty of the surroundings sometimes, as opposed to trying to really and I suppose that enhances some people's worship, that is a beautiful sanctuary, but I think you can kind of do it in a way that isn't going to, it's not going to destroy the beauty of the sanctuary. And that's not, some people are just very, it was a very virulent reaction that we got.
Yeah.
Which I think caught Tom and I will speak for Tom, because off guards, but that's not the first time we've been caught off guard, right, Tom?
yeah.
I tried to help by saying, take a look at St. Andrews in Park Ridge. They've got screens. They can fold them back out of the way, right?
Oh, okay, St. Paul Mount Prospect,
They've got screens that come down from the ceiling, and as far as I know, they haven't put them back up again.
they used to.
They used to recoil them during the traditional service and then bring them back down during the contemporary, but now
They're down all the time.
they're down all the time.
They have their telephone.
They got people used to it gradually by dropping the screens down and showing stuff and then putting the screens back up.
Oh, man.
And pastors can use those screens for presentations during their sermons as well to enhance the sermon. So, but, I suggested you go to St. Andrews in Park Ridge, and the thing I got back was, well, that's going to cost $50,000. I don't think so.
Well, and then when you see people using it, they're all different ages. That's what my dad does, and it's easier for him to see it up there on the screen. I don't know, all of the points, but I mean, this isn't an age thing. A lot of the older people like it because it's easier to follow.
They can see it better and they can
Yeah.
see where they're at. Yep. They don't get lost in page 3 when everybody else is on page 5, right? Yeah. The third point is a welcoming church is a going church. So I'm just going to breeze through this. This is going to be something after you get to be the welcoming church or a going church, where the Great Commission says, go and make disciples. Don't sit here and make disciples. A lot of us think if you build it, they will come. This is not the field of dreams, folks. If you build a bigger sanctuary, it doesn't mean you're going to fill it. The only way you're going to fill it is to go out into the community. Said to them, go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. It's from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 16. Go out there and proclaim it to the whole creation, right? Don't sit there silently inside the 4 walls and think that it's their responsibility to come in. Okay? So welcoming means going. The welcoming church is not merely a church that waits for the world to arrive at the physical address of the congregation. We have this situation where let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers. By doing that, some have entertained angels without knowing it. Would you know if you entertain angels here?
No.
So treat everyone as though they are an angel, right? Don't treat them as outsiders. Welcome them as though they are coming from God, because the Holy Spirit has moved them to come here for some reason. That's really the point of it. So we did all right on time? We're right about there.
Yeah.
Questions, comments? Do you want to continue with this kind of instruction? Or is it worth it to just take a couple of weeks off?
Oh, we have to do something and get many people involved.
You have to go.
Well, I would think until you can get copies and advertise it enough, then maybe we could get a crowd like Scrappy Church.
That actually drifted off after we got about halfway through it, but yeah. If we can get more copies, you think that would make a difference?
Go and start advertising it.
Okay.
And
Actually,
maybe-
you probably didn't notice, but we've been advertising it for 2 weeks. But it got overshadowed by the pastor-elect.
And
Any other
Carol.
And Carol,
Thank you.
that's right.
And in a couple of weeks, we've got, I should
Vacation.
mention, in 2 weeks, we've got the opening of the school year. So we've got blessing of the backpacks, opening the school year, recognition of those who are serving our congregation by being staff and faculty here at Open Arms. So we'll be doing that on the 20th. And then the 27th, guess what we got? Anybody
K9.
know?
K9.
Canine. See, comfort dog is the big thing. It's not Chris Singer, it's the comfort dog.
That's right.
Nice for Chris to come along with a comfort dog, but,
Right.
so you have a different Pastor Chris here, Pastor Chris Singer, CHRIS. And, that should be a lively presentation on Sunday at 8:45, so we need to start announcing that, promoting that amongst the Holy Huddle. Then we're gonna have a comfort dog here, and Chris Singer from Lutheran Church Charities will be presenting about Lutheran Church Charities here at 8:45 in the morning, okay? And then welcome others to come in from outside.
It's funny, people ask me where I go to church, and because I live way out in Mundelein, and I tell them Glenview, they're like, oh, that's too far.
But we've had people invite us to their church when we're out in Mundelein. They see us in the laundry room and say, hey, would you like to attend church? Well, I do.
Yeah,
Thank you for inviting me. Oh, that was wonderful.
Important that you be there, that you be here.
All right. So let's close with a word of prayer. Dear God, we come to you confessing that we are not always as welcoming as we should be. We ask you to work on our hearts and the hearts of those in our congregation, that they might learn how to be welcoming and inviting for others. Work your Spirit into us and allow us to share our faith, emboldened by your Spirit. Let's call this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, thank you, Craig.
See you soon.
See you
Okay.
soon. It's funny, sometimes I'm walking around